Health, exercise, and nutrition are made to seem extremely complex. There's so much conflicting information and noise out there from the gurus that it just makes you want to throw your hands up in the air and give up. But it doesn't have to be this way. We don't need to overcomplicate healthy living. If we simply start by following a few almost outrageously simple principles, we can see tremendous results for our health, our longevity, our well-being, and ultimately our happiness. And I want to share these secrets of health with you today. Let's dive in, friend. I'm Dr. Ryan Williams, your host and the founder of Growing Pure, where I help you make vegan cooking and health fast, simple, and mind-blowingly tasty. Now, I want to begin by discussing two sort of guiding, overarching principles that I think are critical for allowing us to get big, significant wins for our health quickly. The first is that perfection is the very big enemy of progress. I think with so much information out there, and so much of it conflicting, we can get stuck in this kind of paralysis by analysis mindset. We're trying to determine the absolute perfect habits or routines or supplements or diet plans that will allow us to finally unlock that key to perfect health. Friend, I'm afraid it doesn't exist. So what I suggest to you is to follow a very simple principle. Start now and evolve later. You want to make simple, sustainable changes that you can make right now and then worry about the minutiae and the details later. And that brings me on to my second guiding principle here, Pareto's principle. Now, Pareto's principle, named after an Italian economist, but perhaps better known as the 80-20 rule, was popularized in Tim Ferriss's excellent book, The 4-Hour Workweek. It is an empirical observation that is so consistent as to become a sort of law. It states that we often see a highly asymmetric balance of inputs to outputs in roughly an 80-20 ratio. So we often see that just 20% of our work or effort or inputs leads to 80% of our results or outputs. Conversely, 80% of our difficulties or struggles or worries can often be caused by just 20% of our problems. So in the real world, let's have a look at some examples. So a business will often see that 80% of its profits are derived from just 20% of its clients or products. 20% of the people in your life are likely to cause 80% of your worries and stress. In somewhere like a home or an office, 20% of the floor is walked on 80% of the time. And Pareto himself found that 20% of the pea plants in his garden produced 80% of the peas. So when we apply this to health, we're likely to see that 80% of the health benefits and results will come very likely from just 20% of the inputs or efforts. So with these two guiding principles in mind, start now, evolve later, and the 80-20 rule, let's look at 5 different arenas of health that we're likely to see outsized, impactful health benefits from small amounts of immediate effort. So the first arena is our food. Now, food, of course, is one of the cornerstones of good health. It is our fuel, it's our sustenance, and the building blocks of our body and mind. I've done a video talking about the importance of food and how everything that makes us up originally started at the end of our fork. If you would like to watch that video, you can click up here or on the link in the description below. But there is truly no need to overcomplicate this, at least at the beginning. You can always evolve later, right? The key is to start with some simple principles now. So let's keep this really simple, right? At this point, mountains of evidence are all pointing to the same inescapable conclusion. Whole, minimally processed plant foods promote health and longevity and vitality, and animal-based and ultra-processed foods promote disease and sickness and early death. Now, I'm not going to go into the evidence of that here, or this video will get very long, but I have made other videos on this topic. You can click up here to watch one, or again, on the link in the description below. So the takeaway is this: eat as many fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes as you like. Use plenty of herbs and spices, and have a handful of nuts or seeds every now and then as well. And the less processed the foods you eat are, generally the better. As a rough rule of thumb, if I pick a food up in the grocery store and it has more than 5 ingredients, it's probably going to be more processed and less healthy. We also want to eliminate, or at the very least minimize, the amount of animal products that we're eating. If you do this, you'll be well on your way to excellent health, freedom in your body, and more quality time with your loved ones. But look, you don't have to make all these changes all at once. Again, simple, sustainable changes. So maybe start with a few swaps if this is new to you. Maybe you swap out your bacon for a soy product like tofu or tempeh, or even some beans. Or you can just add a handful of leafy greens like rocket, arugula, or watercress or spinach to the top of any lunch or dinner you like. Choose wholemeal, full fibre bread instead of white bread. Or try a glass of tea, coffee, or water in place of a sugary soda. Swap out the minced beef in your chili or your lasagna for some lentils. And instead of having a sugary breakfast cereal, why not have some whole grain oatmeal instead? You can just stop using oil for most or all of your cooking. Use a non-stick pan or a splash of water to stop food sticking instead. And in place of cheese, why don't you have some nutritional yeast or a handful of ground up nuts? Now, I get that in isolation, these changes seem very small and probably insignificant. And if you do them once, they are. But if you can do them day after day, their impact really compounds. And like compounding interest in finance, over a long time, it makes a huge impact. The second arena of health I want to talk about is exercise. It has incredible benefits for our body and our mind. It can ward off mild cognitive decline. It boosts our immune system. It can prevent and treat high blood pressure, and it will improve our mood and our quality of sleep. The real problem when it comes to exercise is motivating ourselves to do it. We can get really caught up in the insignificant minutiae here. We can ask questions like, does walking count? Should I have a protein powder? How many times a week should I go to the gym? Do I do things to failure? Do I need to do resistance training? Is cardio good? Now, these are important questions and they're worthwhile asking, but the critical thing is just doing something. You want to move your body somehow. So the real secret here is to choose some form of exercise that you like enough to do consistently. So let me tell you how I apply that in my life. Now, I like to walk, but usually I don't much like going out into the dark and cold and rain to walk. My solution? I got an indoor folding treadmill and I just walk on that. I put my headphones in, listen to a podcast or an audiobook and walk for sort of 15-20 minutes a day. I found that I really like to run. So it's fun for me and it's therapeutic, and I will do it a few times a week just because I enjoy it and it kind of clears my mind. Now, going to the gym and doing a sort of solo workout, whilst I will do it sometimes, I don't really enjoy it that much. So it's quite hard for me to motivate myself to do it consistently. So what solution have I come up with here? Well, I book an exercise class at the gym instead. When I've booked to be at a certain place at a certain time and there's a punishment for not showing up, you better believe I make it there. So these are just the examples that work for me, but you can do whatever works for you. Walking in the park, lifting weights, playing tennis, you choose. The third arena of health is sleep. Now, I spent a long time not appreciating how vital sleep is for health. And I think most of us have this sort of vague idea that sleep is just something that we have to do. We don't really often stop to consider what it's doing, why our body needs to do it, and what's happening for our health whilst we sleep. Fortunately, I read an excellent book called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. This book is one I would highly recommend. So in Why We Sleep, Dr. Walker elucidates how sleep is strongly implicated in many health conditions. Things like cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, learning and memory retention, weight gain and obesity, a poor immune system, and even reproductive issues. The take-home message is that sleep is really, really important. So how do we apply our start now, evolve later and 80-20 principles to sleep? Firstly, you want to aim for 8 hours sleep a night, and certainly not less than 7. If you think you're fine on less than 7, Dr. Walker's laboratory research suggests you're probably mistaken. There are a few other tips here to help improve your quality of sleep. Firstly, you want to try, insofar as you can, to wake up and go to bed at the same time each day, even on the weekends. Second, you want to try and avoid artificial blue light from things like screens, phones, televisions, tablets for sort of an hour or two before bed each night. Caffeine and alcohol both significantly impair the quality of your sleep, even if you do fall asleep. So these are really things that we want to try and avoid having for at least sort of 6 hours before we go to bed. So if you follow these tips, your sleep quality is likely to improve markedly. But speaking of alcohol, that brings me onto my next arena of health. And this is smoking and drinking alcohol. Now, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that smoking and drinking alcohol are not healthy activities. But I think because they're so common, we sometimes forget just how damaging they are to our health. So tobacco smoke and alcohol are toxic and they are poisonous to the human body. They kill cells, they cause DNA damage that can lead to cancer, and they impair immune function. And in fact, drinking alcohol is not associated, it is causative in over 60 different diseases. And worldwide, it kills 3 million people every year. To put that number of 3 million people worldwide into context, it took the COVID-19 pandemic 16 months to kill 3 million people from late 2019 to April 2021. Of course, the story is pretty similar with smoking. And unfortunately, there is no safe dose at which there is no increased risk when we consume these substances. So ideally, you would quit these activities for the best health outcomes. But I realise that's a lot easier said than done. So if you're not able to quit, then at least try and limit your smoking and alcohol consumption to be occasional indulgences rather than an everyday habit. For example, you might decide to drink alcohol when you go out occasionally to a restaurant, but you're not going to have it at home. My fifth and final arena of health that I really want to discuss is something of an evolution for me, because even a year ago I probably wouldn't have mentioned this one, but now I really believe it's critical. And this is the idea of community and spending time with other people. Now, spending quality time, or even just casual time with other people, is transformative for our health. And I get that this can seem really wishy-washy, but I assure you it's as powerful as any of the other arenas of health that I've discussed here. Loneliness and isolation are silent killers. They sap people of their meaning and their purpose and their joy in life. And what we tend to find is that when people don't have a kind of reason to get up in the morning, a meaning, a purpose, a joy, they have nothing to live for, and their life expectancy is shorter. Now, fortunately, this can be remedied quite easily. Spend time with people you like. It's that simple. So this could be family, right? Go out on a date night with your partner, take some time to play with your kids, or arrange family days out on the weekend. Or you could go and see your friends, right? You can go meet for a coffee, or go for a walk, or do an activity you both like. Or be part of a club or a community. There are many groups that bring people together around a common cause or interest. So these could be things like a sports club, a club around a hobby, a community group, or even a faith-based group. For instance, in the spirit of trying to take my own advice here, I recently joined a public speaking club, and it's great to be around people that share that passion, that have a similar goal, and we can sort of support one another and talk and find ways of growing together. So there we have it, applying our 2 overarching principles of start now, evolve later, and the 80-20 rule to our 5 arenas of health. We come up with 5 simple, actionable takeaways. Number 1, eat more whole plants and fewer animal products and junk foods. Number 2, do whatever exercise you like doing enough to stick with consistently. Number 3, you want to aim for 8 hours sleep a night. Number 4, limit or eliminate smoking and alcohol. And number 5, spend time with people you like. If you're able to implement even one of these changes, you're likely to see excellent results, and you'll feel a noticeable change in your mood and your energy. If you implement all 5, you're probably going to feel 10 years younger. Now, these principles are so simple but so powerful that I want to give you a gift. I want to give you a 1-page summary of these 5 steps that you can take, stick it on your wall, look at it on a regular basis, ideally sort of on a daily basis, and just remind yourself of these simple steps you can be taking each day and improve your health, your happiness, and your well-being. If that would be helpful to you, you can get that for free. Simply click the link in the description below. It is all yours, my friend. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, I made a video all about the specific health benefits you'll get from a vegan diet. If that would be interesting to you, you can click right here to watch that. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.